Yeah, eat, sleep, fantasy, you rockin' with the best. NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. We talking mock drafts, running backs, better follow the conversation with
John,
Dale, Christian, and Armando. Screaming Eat Nation, we doing what we like. Tune in every week, guarantee we get it hype. Fantasy, football enthusiasts, I know you plan to be joining us on Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. Yeah, Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. Eat, Sleep, Fantasy.
All right, welcome to another episode of Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. With me, I'm Armando. You can follow me at ThunderCrestbound. With me, as always, is Clayton. What's up, Clayton?
What's going on? Nice and going to be getting ready for some snow coming up here this week, Armando.
That's a little crazy. It's not relatable at all to our audience right now. You realize that?
That's all right. That's all right. I'm still happy, though. You see that? Canadians are always happy.
Yeah, I don't know about that, man. That's a little scary.
And some good football we watched today. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a little crazy, man. We got some get right games for some people out there, so and some get wrong games.
Yeah.
So let's
some young quarterbacks stepping up in big ways today too.
And some not, like Mason Rudolph. But we'll get to that. Before we kick off into the players, I just want to, just talk about Antonio Brown. He was released, and then he let out a tweet today, Sunday morning, that he's no longer going to play in the NFL. Do you think he's ever going to play again in the NFL?
In all honesty, I'm just tired of listening to all the the drama with this guy. It's it's taken a toll, I think, on like football in general. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It was funny. Like today, I tweeted out as soon as came close to game time. The first thing, all of a sudden, something pops up with A Brown on Twitter. Right? It's like Sundays. He can't stand like Sundays unless he's somehow involved in it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like somehow he has to be talked about, right? And it's just I don't know. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. Like when he's on the football field, amazing, great receiver. But at the same time, you know what? Maybe sit out the year, man. Get all this shit dealt with, and then come back, hopefully, and go from there.
Yeah. Are you cutting him?
I actually dropped him in an auction league that I have.
Yeah, I'm there too. If I own him, I've dropped him. I do think that maybe someone still believes he's going to play in the NFL, that send out a couple trade offers for some. If you have draft picks for trade, do that. Send out for like guys like DK Metcalf. I mean, maybe someone still believes. There's 12 people in your league, 10. Someone's going to still think he's going to play in the NFL. So it's worth shooting out trades before you cut him. That's just my opinion. Just give it a shot. Get anything you can for him before you cut bait. So in a dynasty league, he was traded for Jarvis Landry. So there's still people out there that could use him in the future, type thing.
Yeah, if I could hold on to him, like in this one league that we have, it's one of those things where we're allowed to use a guy off our bench, to fill our roster. I think I was telling you about that before. So I just didn't have I couldn't just sit on him, right, and just wait for him to figure out what's going on. So I cut bait with him, and I actually picked up I want to say Dorsett in that one. So paid out. Yeah, it worked out today. So yeah, it was good.
All right, so let's start off with the 49er game because we have a shit ton of games to get through, and I don't really want to spend 2 hours talking about this.
me neither.
So let's talk about Mace. The 49ers won 24-20. Garoppolo threw 2 interceptions in this game. He looked okay. I guess the bigger story is Mason Rudolph. He looked 170 yards, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. They did lose, but he looked competent enough against a pretty good defense. What are your thoughts on Mason?
Yeah, he was all right. You would like to see, he didn't get started till a little bit later. He looked a little nervous at the start. You would like to see a few more yards out of him, but as for what it is, those are decent stat numbers and like you said, against a good defense.
Yeah, I think it's right now it seems like the 49ers are one of the best. I know it's crazy. Yeah. They were so bad last year, and they're just like, right now they're stopping everybody. John they could be one of the top notch
right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy into it yet, but I don't know. They're 3-0, whatever. Seattle lost today, so they're on top of their division. But on the Steelers side, we have where everyone was thinking James Washington was really going to shoot up the chart, but he did not. It was Deontay Johnson. He had 3 receptions, 52 yards, and a touchdown. Schuster was fine. He caught a long 76-yard touchdown. So it seems like that is still in flux. Hopefully James Washington kind of picks it up. And James Conner kind of looks like he's getting a little bit on pace, 13 carries, 43 yards. So that's a little interesting.
Yeah, the only concern about I forgot about that Juju long touchdown, but you take that away and then you look at Rudolph's numbers, not so great, you know?
No.
Now you're looking at under 100 yards.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. I'm excited to see what happens next week against Cincinnati. Cincinnati is not a good defense, and I personally have Mason Rudolph in a few dynasty leagues, and I think I'm going to start him. I think he just needs another week to get into rhythm. I mean, the Steelers let out another, a notice saying that, they drafted Mason Rudolph to be the incumbent to Ben Roethlisberger, and that's why they traded for Minka. So, if they believe in him, I guess I have to. We'll see what happens. But on the 49ers side, every running back was usable.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And they did exactly what they said. Jeff Wilson had his 2 touchdowns. They said he was going to be the goal line back, and that's exactly what he was. I think he scored both of them from short distances.
Yeah, it looks good. And the only thing to note really with the receivers is Dante Pettis was the number 2 targeted receiver. He caught 4 of his catches for 20 yards and a touchdown, which is, that's okay, but at least it's a sign of life, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. And that was the one thing, as soon as he scored, I was like, now what? You think we were getting clarity with, with Deebo Samuel there, and now all of a sudden Pettis steps back into the mix, right? So,
yeah.
I don't know. I want to see another week, I think, until I insert him back into my lineup, I think.
Yeah, I mean, not the 49ers. The Steelers have a good secondary, so I didn't expect a huge game from anyone, but it's nice to see that he was usable. I'm not starting Pettis, and I'm not cutting Pettis. And I think if he's available in the free agency, I would grab him. I don't think I would waste any waiver or fab money on him, but
definitely not.
He's definitely worth a stash.
Yep, I agree.
And see how this offense develops, because there's a bunch of young guys over there. There's Kittle, and then everybody else. So any one of them could be usable, at any week.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's move on to the Saints and the Seahawks. The Saints came out with this one. Teddy Bridgewater looked like a man. Well, kind of. He only had 177 yards and a touchdown. It was really just Alvin Kamara just running rapid. Russell Wilson looked I think he's the number 1 quarterback this week, but we'll see when numbers fully come out. There's not much to know on the Saints side. Kamara looked sensational. 9 receptions, 90 yards and a touchdown, and then Michael Thomas was fine. He wasn't the wide receiver 1 that we want him to be, but I think we all expected that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's what it was. Kamara's always going to get these touches, right? Like, it should never change. I actually thought he would lose some carries to Taysom Hill a little bit, but Taysom Hill only rushed 1 time. But Michael Thomas he's going to get his. Not worried whatsoever about him.
I mean, if you're a Saints fan and you're into the Saints, like the Seahawks are a good defense. I mean, you should be feeling pretty good about the rest of the season until Breeze gets back. That at least he'll stay afloat. Yeah,
exactly. And that's what they did today for sure.
So on the Seahawks side, Tyler Lockett, 14 targets, 11 receptions. Is he a wide receiver 1? Because last year it was like, you got this long passes, and a touchdown. That was it. Now he's like the number 1 targeted receiver in the NFL with 14 targets.
Yeah, that's insane. Well, yeah, you have to insert him every week. He's almost turning into be. Can you say he's matchup proof right now? Like, I mean, he's facing some decent teams, right? Some decent coverage, but with Wilson's going to find a way to get him the ball. He's the most trusted receiver on this team. So, and obviously 14 targets, that shows, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird game. 32, he threw for 50 times. That's not what they want to do to win games. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not what we expect from him, but still, like, he was hugely targeted last week with over 10 targets. So, I mean, it's kind of becoming more a passing team. Maybe it's because of Chris Carson not performing as well. I don't know.
He's got to hang on to the ball. He's going to play himself out of a job.
Yeah. Yeah, he did fumble again today, which is not good. Rashad Penny was not active.
He fumbled twice today, didn't he?
No, just once.
It
looks like.
it was just the once.
So, Yeah, I mean, DK Metcalf looked fine. He had 6 targets, which is nice. Will Dissly, another good week out of him with 7 targets, 62 yards, and a touchdown. So that's impressive. I know the first week he got a big donut, but 2 weeks in a row, I think Dissly's a real deal, probably like a top 12 guy going forward, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I blew my waiver in that 20-team league I'm in. I blew my waiver on him, and it paid off big time today.
I blew all my fab. I don't even know why on Mason Rudolph. I was like, I think he's going to be the next Big Ben. He's going to be better than him. So in my dynasty leagues, I just went all in. I might regret it, and so far I kind of do after the first week. But we'll see.
Hey, now you just don't have to worry about that one team for waivers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
one less team to worry about.
Exactly. So let's move on to the Texans and Chargers. So Carlos Hyde continues to be the RB1 over there, kind of. 10 carries, 19 yards. I mean, he scored a touchdown, so there's that, you know?
Yeah, but I don't understand what's going on with them in general. Like, I mean, they got the win today, which is awesome, but they for some reason are not running the ball as much as I thought they would be.
Yeah, you trade for an offensive lineman, one of the best in the league, and you're not. It doesn't make sense. Maybe it was the game flow, game plan. I don't know, but a team cannot run 17 times in a game and expect to win. You know. But
then the other thing that's really odd is that trade for Duke now, right? Like they gave up a 3rd rounder, I believe.
Yeah, 4th one. Yeah, still that's too much.
Well, yeah, and this guy's getting targeted 3 times. You know what I mean? And rushing the ball twice. I'm kind of thinking that was a huge mistake, bad signing on their part.
Possibly. I mean, I don't think Carlos Hyde is anything magical. I think it's just a matter of time before he falls off the wagon. They start putting Duke in. I'm interested to see if they sign another running back. This is not looking good at all. No. Moving down to the receivers, Jordan Atkins. Yeah. Is he going to make your waiver wire column? I don't know, man.
I don't think so. I remember looking at him last week. I was just kind of looking at the tight ends in general. And, I mean, he hasn't really done anything. This is his first big game that he's had. He was targeted 5 times, so that's actually... I don't know. He could. It's possible. I got to look at it. There's a lot of guys that I could be adding on that waiver wire this week.
Right. Yeah, there's
a lot of quarterbacks,
so we'll
actually.
Oh, really? Yeah, well, considering Daniel Jones, we'll get there. I guess the guy that kind of stands out to me in this is Kenny Stills with the 6 targets and 89 yards. He's kind of ascending into the wide receiver 2 role. I think he's almost surpassed Will Fuller, and Cootie didn't do anything this week, so... Is he the wide receiver 2 over there, you think?
I'm starting to think that way because like Fuller's not stretching the field as much, right? And Stills is just getting he's been every game he's been in, he's been targeted. And it's you know what, I love Kenny Stills. I'm glad that he came to Houston. Like I'm a Houston guy, right? I'm a Texans fan. And but just it's disappointing because I have Fuller in quite a few leagues, but at the same time it's health, right? Like if Will Fuller can just stay healthy on the field, it'll be close. He'll get his targets every week, but the minute he gets injured, I think that's where you'll see Stills step in and run away with the job. Yeah.
And moving on to the Chargers, you can tell me if I'm wrong. I think this is the first week the Chargers missed Melvin Gordon. I think he literally cost them the game this week.
Yeah, I agree. Nobody looked good in that running game whatsoever.
No. Go ahead.
This might be a time that maybe Melvin Gordon should be, making contact or something like that, right? Or they should be because they can't have too many of these games, right? You know how it is with
it's a tough division they're in. I mean, they're in the one with Kansas City. Yeah. A loss will just knock. I mean, there are 2 losses in. Kansas City's already 3-0, so they're looking at the wild card at this point.
Exactly.
But Keenan Allen looks like a man. He drafted in top 10. He's going to finish, looks like the top 5, especially with that 17 targets, 183 yards and touchdown. Well, that's where there's no one really worth owning.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. That's where the extra targets, I think, came from the fact of no Hunter Henry.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it, I think, when he first went down. It's like, who's going to absorb this? It's going to be those 3 guys, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Eckler. I mean, the only guy that's worth owning, is Eckler and Keenan Allen. Nobody else is worth rostering. Mike Williams, in my opinion, you should just cut bait at this point.
You think so?
I mean, what has he done? He caught a
Yeah.
touchdown last week, or he's getting the targets, but he's not producing enough to. I mean, there's so much more upside on the waiver wire right now than Mike Williams.
Is he 100% though right now? Like, he was injured last week, right? So, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I might hang on to him for one more week and just see how it plays out.
Yeah.
And-
I mean,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
No,
I just don't think there's enough upside there right now. Sure, I think he's going to end up being on your waiver column because he's going to get cut so much, and then he's going to have a huge game, and everyone's like, "Oh, Mike Williams is healthy, time to add him," type thing.
yeah. Well, yeah. It's. I mean, like there is, like you said, there is guys out there, like much better guys out there that are producing consistently. And yeah, like if you, it wouldn't be. It's not a bad thing if you end up dropping him for somebody that's producing.
Yeah. If you're looking at, so we're going to move on to the Giants game. So if you're looking at, if you own Barkley and you can't cut Barkley because you know how serious the injury is, and you need someone to cut, I think it's fine to cut Mike Williams for Wayne Galliman. Like
Absolutely,
that's where
100%.
So I mean that's just digging a little deeper what you have on your roster. Wayne Galliman's going to be more valuable than Mike Williams going forward. So now that I mentioned that, Barkley went down in the Tampa Bay game. He was on crutches at the end of the game, so it looks like it could be serious. It might be more than a 1 week injury. I don't know.
I thought I read somewhere something about like 6 weeks or something like that. That's
Good
what they
Lord,
were talking
already?
about. I honestly I can't remember where I read that, but or maybe it was obviously maybe a speculation because it was like right after the game, right? So
Yeah, it's a little early for that one. But let's talk about the Giants really quick, or not really quick, because Daniel Jones looks like the best rookie in this draft so far. I don't know. Minshew looks pretty good, but Jesus Christ. He was a top-scoring quarterback up until Russell Wilson got that late touchdown.
no, he looked awesome today. And the one thing I got to give props to, Matt, Eli Manning. Like that is, it's too bad not all these young guys have a guy to play either behind a guy like Eli Manning and after he takes over a guy that's supportive like Eli Manning. Like that first touchdown that he I believe he ran in or he threw, I've never seen Eli Manning show that much emotion ever.
That's awesome.
He was so excited for the kid, right? And I'm like, and you look at guys like Mason Rudolph that had to stand behind fucking Roethlisberger that basically said straight out, I'm not here basically to babysit and mentor a kid, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
that's Joe Flacco as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, good on. I think it says a lot for Eli. You know what I mean? That he can man up and realize that Daniel Jones is the future and just live with it, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, after Barkley went down, Evan Ingram and Sterling Shepard stepped up. I mean, they both had 8 to 9 targets. They look great. Both went over 100 yards and a touchdown. I think they're both high. Like Sterling Shepard's a wide receiver 2 going forward if Barkley's out. Ingram's a wide receiver 4, tight end 4.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is exactly what we thought was going to happen, right? With this offense in general. And we knew that Evan Ingram was going. He's their best pass catcher. In my opinion, he's their best pass catcher. Now Sterling Shepard came in, which is awesome. 9 targets, that's perfect. We expected that. But don't forget now, Golden Tate's coming back too, right? I think
that's true.
I think he's got what? He's got one more week of suspension left, I believe.
Yeah, 4 weeks suspension. So yeah, is he going to be? I mean, I know it's still early, but is he someone you might be thinking about adding on your waiver column?
Yeah, I might, depending on what it looks like. For this week, once I sit down and look at it, good possibility. But if not, for sure he'll be on there next week.
Yeah. So let's move on to the Tampa Bay side. I guess the most interesting thing to talk about is Ronald Jones re-establishes himself as a running back 1 on that roster. I guess Peyton Barber, got almost as many carries, but Ronald Jones did literally double again than Peyton Barber.
Yeah, and they just don't make things easy. There's not one guy Tampa Bay just can't commit to one guy. You know what I mean? And give Ronald Jones is running better all day. Why don't you just give the kid the rock 20 times and see what he can do with it, right? But no, he has to go. It's almost like a 50-50 split every time.
Well, what was interesting is, I don't know if this played any role into it, but last week the Tampa Bay game was suspended, right when they started, and then they started back up after an hour or so. So I wonder if, him cooling down and them wanting to keep him healthy had anything to do with it. I don't know. That's what maybe I'm just trying to read tea leaves at this point, but maybe it's Ronald Jones' job to lose at this point. 15 carries, and he's getting work in the receiving game. He's he could end up being a top 24 running back if he's able to get that amount of work the rest of the season.
Yeah, I hope so.
He's not bad.
No.
He could be good. Just give him a shot.
Exactly.
So let's move on to the Panthers Cardinals.
That's all you're going to talk about is just that. You're not talking about Evans' giant-sized game. His 190 yards.
All right, let's talk about it. Tell me about it.
He went off.
15 targets.
Good for him.
He went crazy.
And now what happens with Godwin? Godwin looks like a nobody now, right? 4 targets.
I mean, it's good. It doesn't make any sense. I think everyone's going to come back down to earth. Godwin's. He only got 4 targets. Evans 15. Everyone talked about this week, and me included. This was a get right game for Evans, a get right game for the Buccaneers, and they got right. They looked great. They lost, but they still scored a shit ton of points. Everyone looked good.
Okay, quick question for you. What about OJ Howard? What are you doing with him? You gonna start rolling him out there again? He had 3 receptions for 66 yards today.
If people like Darren Waller are available, he might not be. Mark Andrews, I would rather be starting those guys. Like we talked about before, we're not cutting OJ Howard. We're just not as confident as we were before.
Yeah,
he's a low end. I'd rather have Disley than Howard. If Disley's unavailable, I'm gonna go grab Disley.
Yeah, agreed.
But I'm not cutting Howard if I don't have to. Again, but if you could stream Vance McDonald, stuff like that, I think OJ Howard is no longer in the top 5, top 6 territory. He's a streaming tight end, and if you could hold on to him, great. But if someone like Galliman is going to fall to you in the waiver wire, I'd rather have Galliman.
Agreed. All right, let's.
And I don't think.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, so I just since you brought up Evans, 15 targets to Godwin's 4. I think it's going to be returned more to the mean. I think Evans and Godwin should be getting around 10 targets each. And I do think Evans is more talented, so I imagine he's going to be the one that's scoring, in the 100-yard range with a touchdown here and there. So that's my take on that. So let's move on to the Carolina-Arizona game. It was 38-20. This guy, Kyle Allen, looked like a quarterback in the NFL who should be starting somewhere.
Oh, he balled out. 4 passing touchdowns, no interceptions today. And his throws were on the money every time.
Yeah, he looked good. It was a weird game. We're going to talk about this one for just a little bit because Curtis Samuel out-targeted DJ Moore by 5. With Cam Newton, that was not the case. DJ Moore was the most targeted receiver, 3rd most receiver in the NFL going into through 2 weeks. So that was kind of interesting to see how that developed. I wasn't sure why, though.
Yeah, somebody asked me today about Curtis Samuel on Twitter this morning I just put out there that, asked me and he starts his questions. And I said to start Samuel, just felt like it was a Samuel game just because he could stretch the field more, you know what I mean? I think with DJ Moore, he's running those short routes all the time, and I think with a rookie quarterback, it looked like he had a little bit of time at least, but he was looking deep quite a bit.
Yeah, it was. They certainly did. I just imagine. I don't think this is anything to read too much into. I think DJ Moore is the better receiver, and he's going to be the more targeted receiver when Cam Newton returns. Hopefully, he returns next week because I own a shit ton of DJ Moore shares. So, literally every league, he's on my roster, and I'm happy with what he did. One reception, 52 yards, and a touchdown, and then he had another 12 yards running. So that's okay. I'm not too mad about that.
Oh no, he performed well.
Yeah. So on the Cardinals side, they lost again. Kyler Murray threw 2 interceptions. They are not running the ball enough to win the game. They ran only 11 times with David Johnson, and that's not going to win you anything. David Johnson's talented enough.
And, for a guy that they're talking about that can, sling the ball deep, he's thrown the ball 30 times today for 173 yards. That's not really slinging very many deep balls, you know what I mean? For a guy that's supposed to be very accurate downfield.
Yeah, he's not. He's really not. They really need to, if they want to win again, maybe they do want to lose games and they want to get an early draft pick. I don't know. But this is not the way to win games at all. Christian Kirk looked fine, 10 receptions, and PPR, he's great. 10 receptions, 59 yards is fine, but he's not doing a lot with it. So that's still disappointing. There's not much more to talk about with the Cardinals. Right now, I think it's almost a dead zone. They're putting up a few points, but not enough to make me, go bananas over them at all.
Yeah, the only guys that are considered on an every week start because you drafted him high is David Johnson, right? And that's only because you drafted him in those, probably first 2 rounds.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the only thing that's saving David Johnson at this point is the receiving game where he's getting touchdowns. He's not doing anything on the ground.
Yeah, because they just don't have. I understand this air raid offense and stuff. I get it, but at the same time, if you're not successful in that, try to lean back again on the run game a little bit to a guy that can run the ball.
Yeah, no kidding. This is I'm not a fan of the Cardinals right now. They are not. I used to like them, but whoever their head coach is over there is not very good.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's move on to the Eagles and Lions. 27-24. Lions surprisingly won this game. Kerryon Johnson, man, 20 carries, a full 36 yards. We lucked out with the touchdown, but Jesus Christ, I'm getting worried about this guy.
Yeah, I have to say the same thing. I was watching that today, and then finally got to actually look at his stats. I was like, what the hell? Every time I saw a play, it looked like Kerryon was carrying the ball. I'm like, oh, you must be going off today. And then I look, I'm like, what the hell? Like
I don't get it.
1.8 yards per carry. Ouch.
Yeah, I mean, they cut C.J. Anderson. I guess they think he's doing fine enough. Ty Johnson is the backup. 4 carries, 5 yards. Not much better at all. So it's going to be interesting to see how this develops. Maybe it was a good defense. I don't know, but that's not what you want to see. I mean, I'm glad Kerryon Johnson is getting 20 carries and the work out of the backfield, which is really nice, but you got to do just a little more with it, Kerryon.
Could be defense. O-line could be trash too, right? So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're winning games. They're 2-0, 2-0-1. So, I mean, they haven't lost yet, so there's that perk.
It's good to see Marvin Jones step up with 9 targets, 6 receptions for 101 yards and a touchdown too.
Yeah, I would have if he didn't do anything this week, I think he was going to be welcome to like Cutville.
Yeah.
Like I did not want any part of that.
Now,
Kenny Galladay laid an egg.
Are you concerned with that? 8 targets for Kenny Galladay, 8 targets, and he only caught 2 for 17 yards.
Yeah, I'm very concerned. I was looking at stats the other day, which was really interesting. Courtland Sutton went way later than Kenny Galladay was going, and they've had identical stats, word for word. And the Broncos are a terrible offense. Like, it's bad.
Yeah.
I personally am real. I mean, besides that one touchdown he got so far this season, Galladay is more of a wide receiver 3 at this point.
Yeah, agreed. And I think T.J. Hawkinson droppable now. He had his monster week 1, and then all of a sudden just basically donuts the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's not pretty. I mean, I don't know if he's droppable in Dynasty, obviously,
No.
but yeah, in Standard, yeah, I would say, yeah, I would not be mad at anybody for cutting him. I almost wasted a waiver on him. I decided not to for whatever reason. But he's not like anything to write home about anytime soon, at least. Maybe later in the season he'll develop, but right now it's not pretty.
They might have to think to go back to week 1 and actually see what works, right?
Yeah, exactly. So on the Eagles side, I guess the biggest thing to note, with Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson out, the Eagles looked a little rough, but Nelson Aguilar had 12 targets, 50 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So if you started him, you are very happy with that.
Yeah, I had him a couple of FanDuel lineups that I cashed in on, so it was good.
Yeah, Zach Ertz looks fine. He still isn't really getting into the end zone. He's getting the targets, he's getting the receptions, but it's not enough to. He's not doing what I want him to do. I want him to get in the end zone.
Yeah, and if these guys, if Jackson and Jeffrey miss again, what do you think of Mac Hollins? He surpassed our Siegel-Whiteside. In my opinion, he had 7 targets today and 62 yards on 4 catches.
Yeah, Mac Hollins. I mean, he had a good preseason 2 years ago, and he's remained on the roster since. He got injured twice. So, but he looks fine. I do think it's Nelson Aguilar's show until things go. I'm not going to start Mac Hollins anytime soon. If they're still down 3 weeks from now, then yeah, Mac Hollins is worth starting.
Yeah, you would have to.
Right. Yeah, he's definitely leapfrogged Whiteside. I think Whiteside is a dynasty stash until next year.
Absolutely.
But Mac Hollins might be more interesting if they continue to miss time. But right now it's Aguilar and Ertz, and maybe Mac Hollins. Maybe he is worth. Do you think he's going to be on your waiver wire column?
No.
But those numbers are right. I mean, 7 targets in the Eagles' offense isn't bad.
You want to see that a couple weeks in a row, though, right? You know what I mean? You want to see.
Yeah. You
want to see a guy that's on, like Aguilar's been on the field every game, right? Where with those other 2 guys, I think maybe Hollins. I'll look at his snap counts, but I don't even think he's been on the field.
There.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he's not there. I was just curious. I mean, if he is out, I don't think if those two other guys are out for a few more weeks, maybe. But I think everyone is expecting both of them back next week at this point.
Exactly. And Sanders, welcome to the NFL. He looked good.
Yeah, finally. Jeez, they were not looking right at all, but yeah, he showed up.
On that,
luckily.
that nice, he had that, what was it, a 41-yard catch I think he had earlier, where Wentz was just, running for his life and just found a way to get wide open and pulled that in for a nice 41-yard gain. He looked great running the ball as well, 4.1 yards per carry, but you still don't know what's going on in that that run game because Howard also had 11 carries too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to be, it is what it is. I think obviously Sanders is the one to own because he is running and he is catching, so it makes him the most interesting. I don't think either one is beyond a flex play.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Flex play, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Miles Sanders is worth trading for in the future if you have the depth to acquire him. I mean, anything can happen. Jordan Howard can get injured, Darren Sproles can get injured, and his value is going to go up. He's young, so he's definitely worth the trade, and his value should go up as the season progresses. I mean, they're older guys over there. So let's move over to Oakland and Minnesota. Minnesota wiped the floor with Oakland 34-14. Those are garbage points. Are you getting worried about Josh Jacobs? 10 carries, 44 yards.
I just think because of the game script, I think, and they were talking about how that was the biggest problem when they announced him as the starter and said that he's going to be, be the bell cow back, right? He's never carried the ball over 100 times in a season. And he's just right now, I think it's just game script because he's not being used in that passing game.
No, he's
right.
not.
So if they're going to be playing catch up every single game, they suck. Let's be realistic, right? Like they're not a good team. So if he's not being used in the passing game, then kind of, Jalen Richard was out there. You know what I mean, in the passing down role. So to me, it's something to be concerned about. He's no longer. I don't even think I wouldn't be playing him more than depending on matchup. I guess that's how I'd be playing it.
Right. I mean, the Vikings are a stout defense. Yeah. I guess I'm concerned about Josh Jacobs. Dwayne Washington or whatever his name, Washington, had 6 carries and Jacobs had 10. So if it was game flow, then why did they give Washington that amount of carries? Yeah. That's what's most worrisome. I mean, he was sick and injured going into this game, so maybe that's what played into it. But he hasn't looked good in 2 weeks. So if you own him, I would be worried. And I think you were going to say he's a flex play or an RB3-ish.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Probably like an RB3 flex play for me, depending on.
He's a safer end of the flex plays. I mean, he's a higher end of that because there is that upside where a good matchup he could go off, but he's nothing more than that. I think the only guy that's on the Oakland roster that's worth starting week in and week out is Darren Waller. He's, for me, I've been saying this for 2 weeks now. I think he's a must-start top 5 tight end going forward.
And this is the one guy that you could believe coming out of training camp, right? They were touting this guy like crazy. You know what I mean? They love Waller. You see that on Hard Knocks, everything, and they actually use him. 14 targets today he had. And everyone else had no more than 5, so that's 13 catches. That's ridiculous numbers for a tight end.
Yeah, no, Darren Waller. I own Kittle and I own Waller, and I'm at the point where I'm thinking about starting Waller over Kittle. He's looking better. At some point you got to just say cup 8.
Yeah,
nothing wrong. I'm not cutting Kittle by any means in my dynasty league, but you just got to go who's performing at this point. We're 3 weeks in.
Yeah, well, I'm in one of my dynasty auction league. I have both Waller and Andrews, so I'm happy with that. And I start two tight ends in that league, so it's awesome.
That is perfect.
Yeah.
So on the Vikings side, Dalvin Cook looked great, 16 carries, over 100 yards. Madison, 12 carries, 58 yards. He looked great. The most interesting thing for me, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I am going to hit the panic button on Thielen and Diggs.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they're not throwing the ball.
No,
Cousins,
not at all.
Yeah, Cousins is just... He's doing what he has to do in order to win a game. That's all he's doing, right? They're going to run this. They're going to run Cook into the ground because he's performing. He's a great running back. And now you got Madison behind him that's also performing. you're gonna see more running plays out of this team than you are passing plays. I think this number of 20 passing attempts or 21 passing attempts, you'll see more often than not.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I think even in a game that they're in, or they're like it's a close game, I think that you're going to continue to see these numbers for these guys. It's two out of 3 weeks they've ran the ball more than they passed, which that's how you win games.
Yeah, if you have Thielen, you're happy obviously with what he did today. You vultured that touchdown from Cook on the 1 yard line.
Yeah,
today.
it's a vulture though. That's the thing. Yeah. He didn't earn any of it.
And then you got it. Well, his touchdown catch was a good catch. So. If you had him in your lineup, you're probably happy. But, yeah, it's concerning this offense is outside of Dalvin Cook.
I would personally, if you own Thielen, I think he still has his draft value. I think you could trade him. Diggs is, he's like a wide receiver 3 at this point. He's not doing jack shit.
Yeah, and what about start with talk tight end real quick? Irv Smith Jr., is he somebody to keep an eye on? Or
yeah. It's definitely. I don't think he's going to light the world on fire with him out there throwing the ball, but 3 targets, 60 yards. If he continues to do that throughout the season, he's going to end up being a top 12 tight end. Yeah. He'll throw a touchdown in there, here and there. So
wait a couple weeks and see where that goes.
Yeah, I'm not wavering him.
No,
I don't think he should.
No, definitely.
Yeah, but he's definitely worth. Like I own Jimmy Graham as my tight end because I lost Hunter Henry, and I'm eyeing him. I think he's definitely an option.
Yeah.
So I guess this was a game of the week. Baltimore and Kansas City, 33-28. I don't think that it was very close from what I saw. Mahomes wiped the floor with Baltimore Ravens. They looked good. The score ended up being closer than it was for most of the game.
Well, that's what I was saying. I had to leave halfway through. I had to leave at halftime for this game, and I was just sitting there. Like I'm invested with Jackson a lot, and I was like, this guy's got to get something going in the second half. He has to, and that's pretty much. I think because they were down so much. I think they were just forced to go back to what works, right? You saw Lamar Jackson running more. Ingram beasted out. That he's in the perfect fit on this team.
Yeah, he looks great. Gus Edwards looks good too. I personally think that Gus Edwards might be worth an ad if you're in need of running back and the perfect handcuff to Mark Ingram. So we'll see how that develops.
Yeah, I agree. And as far Ingram's used in both the passing game as well. Outside on the passing side of the ball, I didn't really see too much. I think I wouldn't be too worried about Mark Andrews. He was targeted 7 times, 3 catches for 15 yards, but he was questionable going into this week, right? So
yeah, all the other tight ends ended up getting involved in that. Boyle, Hurst, they haven't done anything. They each, between the two, they had 10 targets, which is quite a bit, especially for the Ravens. The guy that kind of stands out to me is Brown. He had 9 targets, but 49 yards.
Yeah.
After a big week 1, I think everyone should be coming back down to earth with him. I think he's more of a wide receiver 3 going forward. I don't know if I'm going crazy on this, but 9 targets is a lot. But it's either he gets a touchdown or he doesn't, and he ends up with this.
I could kind of see the game script going where I think KC may have locked in on him. You know what I mean? Because this receiving core does not scare you by any stretch, right? So, in my opinion, I think they may have. I didn't watch too much of him. I like to go back and watch a little bit of it just to see how they were playing Brown, and if were these targets he was getting in these drop balls, were they product of just good defense, or was it just because he was just junk, right?
Right. Well, up until this week, the Ravens have played they have played JV teams, like JV defenses. Yeah. Like this is the first week that they actually had a defense that was, not bottom, the 32. So I think that this is going to be more of the norm, in my opinion. The targets are there, but it's are they, like you said, are they catchable? And knowing Lamar Jackson, they're not. So there was a lot of news going into the Kansas City game that Darrell Williams was going to be the starter. And I guess he was. He had 9 carries for 62 yards, but LaShawn McCoy came to play.
I think he saw his opportunity. He realizes that he was questionable coming into the game, but I think he really said, you know what, here's my chance, and he had to run with it, and he did just that.
Yeah, he did. And Darrell Williams looked good too, but he just didn't get touchdowns. McCoy did. He ended up with 2 touchdowns and was usable in the passing game. So he's definitely, it's nice to see that happen. For him, especially with Damian Williams being out. So on the receiving end, go ahead.
I think just go back to running game. I think Darwin Thompson, I don't think is rosterable at all. I don't think he's in like you said, dynasty leagues. I think he's perfect stashing, but he's not going to be doing anything this year.
Not anytime soon. I think there definitely needs to be some injuries ahead of him to make it happen. It's going to be a while. I'm stashing him in my taxi squad in one of my dynasty leagues, but I have no intentions of activating him, and I have no intentions of trading him. He could be something he could not be. Yeah. He didn't. He looked the worst of the 3 running backs playing with 4 carries, 8 yards, while the other ones ended up with over 50 yards. So McCall Hardman ended up being the biggest beneficiary of Tyreek Hill this week. He had only 2 receptions, but 97 yards and a touchdown. Are you still starting him going forward?
I think I'm putting him in my flex. I have no issue. I understand he's a boomer bust play, but obviously Mahomes likes to look at him. Do you know what I mean? So I mean because he caught that deep ball. So I mean he's in the flex position. I think you go back to Robinson though. He had that. Did you see that touchdown grab he had?
No, I didn't see it.
Robinson's
It was nice.
touchdown grab. Oh, it was sweet. It was one-hander. It was beauty. But I think both of those guys are still not going to be any different than what we talked about them this past week, and I think they're both in the flex conversation for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if you own them, you're starting them in the flex, and hopefully they catch a touchdown. They both did this week, somehow against the Ravens. I guess Sammy Watkins, he's become more of the possession guy, and the other 2 have become the deep guys who get better chance of getting a touchdown. He ended up with 8 targets, 5 receptions, 64 yards. But I think he's just going to be a wide receiver 2 going forward. I mean, it's nice to see him getting the targets and the receptions, but the touchdowns are not there for him or the deep balls.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the Atlanta-Indianapolis game. So this game was the Colts were handing it to the Falcons the entire game. The Falcons surged back but ended up losing. Marlon Mack still looks like a stud, and Jacoby Brissett. I mean, is he a must start going forward?
Jacoby Brissett. Now that bye weeks are starting, like bye weeks start next week, so I think with bye weeks starting, I have no issue inserting him in. Especially, I think it's next week. I think they have a very favorable matchup. I think they have Washington, I believe.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
It's not a bad matchup.
Yeah.
There is one injury.
Sorry, they have Oakland. So,
okay.
I think you could fire him up.
Yeah. T.Y. Hilton did leave this game. I'm not sure if he returned. He ended with 8 receptions on 10 targets with 65 yards and a touchdown. Between those 2, I think they're the only ones between Mac and T.Y. I think they're the only 2 guys that are worth starting besides Brissett on that roster.
Yeah, keep an eye on that quad injury because I mean that's what Hilton was nursing before he came into this game, and he was questionable, and he came in. I think that's what he injured it again because I saw them wrapping his quad on the sideline. So I don't believe he came back in the game after he left.
Yeah, no, I don't think he did either. On the running back side, I think this is the first week that Devontae Freeman looked like he belonged in the NFL. 16 carries and 88 yards. Ito Smith was an afterthought, unfortunately. It took a while, but Julio Jones ended this game with 128 yards and a touchdown. So
I was worried about that big time. Just I think at half he was only targeted like twice or something, and he really stepped up in the second half for sure. And Austin Hooper, I think you fire him up as a in your starting spot for tight end for sure.
Yeah, he ended up with 2 touchdowns, 66 yards. I have him and Evan Ingram in my SFB league, and I don't know if you know about how SFB works, but tight ends get an extra point per reception.
Yeah.
And if it's a first down, they get an extra point after that. So I ended with Hooper and Evan Ingram. Yeah. So I ended with Hooper and Evan Ingram with, between the 2, 70 points.
Jesus. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
Tell me you lost.
No, not this week. I am destroying that league right now with those two tight ends.
That's
I don't have a
awesome.
quarterback. Minshew is my starting quarterback right now, so there you go. I don't know if there's much more to note on this game, so let's move on to the Packers and the Broncos. Jesus, can you just tell me if Rodgers is he a must start anymore? Because he does not look like it.
No, I don't think so. And I was talking to a couple buddies talking about that and how he just I don't like is he 100%? Like he doesn't even look like the same.
I don't know. I don't know if it's the offense or
Yeah.
what the fuck it is, man. But it's pissing me off, man. I own one share of him, and it's enough to infuriate me.
Well, I think you're almost going to see him starting to take over the. Remember how they were saying that he did a lot of the play calling before LaFleur came in? I think you're going to see a lot more of that, and I think they might be even butting heads in this offense.
I believe it. I mean, they're 3-0, so they're not going down the wrong road necessarily. They're better off than they were last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I own him in a keeper league, and I'm at the point where if I see Josh Allen out there or one of these young guys, I'm definitely inclined to grab somebody. Like this is not what I want to see from my starting quarterback.
Play the better matchup, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Marquez Valdez-Scantling ended the game with 10 targets, way more than Devontae Adams, who had 4. He has not looked good up until this point, but this week he really showed up.
Yeah, those points look beautiful on my bench in quite a few leagues too.
Yeah, I had cut him yesterday. I was like, I'm just gonna pick up another defense. You're not really doing nothing for me, Valdez. It was a mistake.
Oh yeah, whatever. Right? But he didn't do anything last week, right? So it's this, and this is why I love fantasy football, right? Because every week I'm so excited to watch football, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, fuck, this guy didn't do anything yesterday. Now he blows up for 30 points today. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
exactly. It's so up in the air week to week on all these players. So I mean, with him, like I had him, there's no way. I thought about cutting him, but I'm like, I'm just going to wait and see because he has been productive in the past, right? And after this, I still probably won't start him next week.
No, you shouldn't.
Until I see him again.
So with the Packers, I guess this is the most interesting talking topic. Jamal Williams outsnapped and outcarried Aaron Jones, and he had more yardage than Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones had the 2 touchdowns, but Jamal Williams looked a lot better. So this is a complete timeshare at this point.
Yeah,
this is scary.
Could you technically play both these guys? Put them both in your lineup if you have them?
Yeah, you definitely could.
Because I do in our dynasty league, right? And like that's what I was saying. I was like, damn. And then I saw even at halftime, I think, Williams outsnapped Jones. I think it was 52% to 48.
Yeah, and he got the targets and the receptions. He ended up with 27 yards in the receiving game, and Jones with 4. So, yeah, I don't know. I personally, if I own Aaron Jones, I'm looking to look at those numbers. I'm gonna trade him away. Yeah, I personally don't want him on my roster. That's not. I'd rather have Jamal Williams at this point. And you probably get him for less.
And he'll probably make my waiver wire ad actually, because I don't believe he's owned in very, very many leagues. I think he's available in a lot.
Yeah. So on the Broncos side, they lost because they suck. But Royce Freeman did leave this game. He did return. He had 15 carries and 63 yards. Lindsey looked finally half decent. He had 21 for 81, 2 touchdowns. And he was very active in the passing game. He ended up with 5 targets, 50 yards receiving. I don't know if there's much more to note besides Emmanuel Sanders came back down to earth with 10 receiving yards.
Yeah, and Sutton continues to produce. So I was down on him this week. It's so hard to want to start a guy when you know Flacco's throwing him the ball. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, they don't have another option. Their other quarterback is on IR, like the one they drafted, so they're kind of stuck with Flacco going forward. Yeah.
Here, go. Just interrupt real quick. So just looked up Jamal Williams' ownership in Yahoo. He's available in 90% of the leagues, so he'll definitely be making my waiver wire article this week.
He definitely needs to be owned. Yeah. I'm the guy who didn't draft an RB2 and I'm stuck. So I might be starting him this next week. I have Rex Burkhead as my RB2, Ito Smith, hoping for an injury. Not really hoping, but wanting it. Is Cortland Sutton wide receiver 3, flex play? What are we doing with him?
think wide receiver 3. I think he's more than he's more than a flex play. I think you can play him. He's the second. Well, right now, I'm not sure where it is, but he was the second most targeted on this team going into this week too, right? So he
looks good.
I would say wide receiver 3, and it's so hard to even want to put him in a wide receiver 2 discussion just because of Flacco. You know what I mean? That's the biggest problem.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if this was game flow or anything, but Sutton definitely, looked better than Emmanuel Sanders. And I don't imagine that Sanders is going to continue what he did last week. I think Sutton's going to start to progress. And I mean, the Broncos did play against the Packers, who have one of the better defenses in the league. I would say they're top 10 in my opinion. So we'll see how this ends up playing out. But I think Sutton, if he's available on the waiver wire, he should be added and stashed for later in the season. He could, progress into being, the wide receiver 2 people wanted him to be going into the season.
Exactly.
So I'm going to talk about my Dolphins really quick. They did not look absolutely terrible.
They didn't. I watched a lot of that game, and I was actually, I was expecting it to be ridiculous. And you're right, they didn't look bad.
If it wasn't for that fumble by Drake in the end zone, like, this would have been a good game. Like, they would have been in this game for a long time. I didn't expect them to win, but I'm very happy with, Josh Rosen. I mean, he threw 40 times, but whatever, 200 yards. Like, it's fine. I'm happy with that. I don't want them to win personally.
Yeah, well, exactly. But sorry, did Rosen come back into the game after he left?
Yeah, he left
did.
for 2 snaps, and then
it.
Fitzpatrick ended up relieved him for 29 yards, which was fine. I do think that going forward, Kenyon Drake in PPR is a flex play. I think he's the only guy you can really trust. What do you think?
I agree with that, but do you think they're losing confidence in his running game? Can you see, like you saw Kalen Ballage carry the ball 8 times today? Do you think he's kind of closing the gap on that?
I don't think he is. I mean, I think that this is what they've been doing. I mean, they've been splitting the work almost evenly down the middle with the carries, but Drake is doing a little more with it, and he's involved in the passing game and doing a little more with that too. So I think it's Drake's job to lose. I mean, he's not doing enough, or he's not going to be in scoring position a lot, so there's not a lot of upside. But yeah, if you're going to start someone on the Dolphins, I guess it is Drake. But it is interesting to note that with Rosen, Preston Williams ended with 12 targets.
Yeah, and he was good.
That's a shit ton.
Yeah, that's it for this offense. Absolutely.
I don't know. Is he in Dynasty? Obviously, he's worth stashing, but is he worth adding in Standard or anything else?
You know what? The only way that I would be, like, I mean, I have him in a few teams, but the only way I'd be adding him on say a redraft league or something like that would be to just fill in on a bye week, right?
Yeah,
I don't think we can see 12. I mean, I guess if they're throwing the ball 40 times, I guess you could see double-digit targets every week.
Exactly.
But they were talking to him up in training camp as well, so they're obviously liking him. So
yeah, they liked him enough to trade away Kenny Stills, so that's great.
And is Alan Hearns going to survive? Like, that was pretty. That was crazy hit that he took.
Hopefully not. I don't know if I really want. So on the Cowboy side, they were winning this game most of the time. So Zeke ended with 20 carries. Pollard ended up with 13 and 100 yards and a touchdown, which is kind of crazy. If you own Zeke, you're kind of frustrated with that outcome there. Amari Cooper looked great. He's the guy to own. Yeah. He's the only one worth owning right now, I think, in the receiving game until Gallup comes back.
Yeah, agreed with that. And yeah, I mean, with the whole running game though, you knew Pollard was going to get some. If this game got carried away, you knew that they were going to ease off on Zeke a little bit and give Pollard a shot. And there was it was
nice to see that he was able. Go ahead.
No, you go finish. It's okay.
It was nice to see that he did so much with the amount of work he got. Like, that's if Zeke goes down, I think Pollard is the number one handcuff in the league.
Oh, and even if I had Zeke, I would be trying to roster Pollard now, just in case, right? That's one of those guys. Pollard is a running back that would be like if you have him, you're going to win your league if Zeke goes out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, your team's not gonna miss a beat.
Exactly.
So let's move on to the Bengals-Bills. This was not a fun game to watch. I think Dalton was like 0 for 12 going into halftime. It was fucking terrible to watch. But they ended up closing the gap, and the game turned 17-21. Joe Mixon started to show signs of life in the second half. He ended up with 61 yards out of 15 carries, and he caught a touchdown. So that's all very fucking good news if you own Mixon.
Oh, absolutely.
So John Ross came back, smashing back down to earth. 2 receptions, 22 yards. I think this is more of the norm if they play a good defense. Yeah, I don't know. Tyler Boyd looks fine. He is what he is. He's not a big touchdown guy, but he's going to get a lot of receptions. So PPR, he's usable. Standard, he's more of a wide receiver 3. You agree?
Yeah, agreed with that. And then this Auden Tate, 10 targets, 6 catches for 88 yards. Are you buying that?
I mean, there was a lot of talk about him last year. I don't know if, what the deal is. I mean, that's a lot of targets, and AJ Green might be coming back soon. So is he worth adding? I don't think so. No, okay, I do agree. I don't.
I just
that was bait.
I just wanted to hear you. I just wanted to see you're that guy that always looks deep into that, and I remember last year you're talking up Gus Edwards before Gus Edwards was even a thing last year, and you're texting.
I mean, if AJ Green was going to be out 2 or 3 more weeks, 10 targets, I will buy that all day. But he was running last week without a limp, so. That's my if Auden Tate if there was no AJ Green, yes, Auden Tate I think is definitely worth rostering, but he's a week out maybe from being back.
Yeah.
So moving on to the Bills, they were without Devin Singletary. Frank Gore ended up with 14 carries, 76 yards and a touchdown, so he was fine. TJ Yeldon also got some work. Is there anything? I mean, do we care anything else about them? John Brown looked fine. Cole Beasley was the one to own and ended up with 8 receptions, 48 yards. But that's about it, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't buy into Dawson Knox at tight end. He had cut a touchdown. It is what it is. They're going to be relying on John Brown most of the time in this passing game. And obviously with John Brown and Beasley, I think, is the guys to own. I think John Brown you can slot in and start him. Beasley would be more of a flex play.
Yeah, I mean, they won this game. I don't know if they deserve to win this game. They should not have been. They should not have been this close against the Bengals. But it is what it is. They're going to be in a lot of close games because they run the ball so much. So it is. They'll be in the playoffs. Hopefully.
Yeah,
I would love to see them. I don't think they're very good, but I would like to see. I like watching the Bills in the playoffs. Is always good for football.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's move on to the Patriots and the Jets. Luke Falk looked terrible. Probably the worst starter in the week by far.
Oh, yeah. I definitely wasn't talking about him when I was talking about young quarterbacks, that's for sure.
No, I wasn't sure. I was trying to bait you, see if you were going to...
No, there's nothing to say about that kid.
No. There isn't much to talk about the Jets.
No.
I mean, they're on a bye week coming up, and then we're expecting Sam Darnold back, so, just hold your horses on these guys.
I'd be concerned with Lev Bell with Luke Falk running the show.
Yeah, no, Bell didn't look bad. The Jets looked bad.
Yeah, exactly.
I read a couple articles that people were talking about maybe the Jets should trade Le'Veon Bell. That they're too far away from winning to really him be worth the investment at this point.
Well, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So the Patriots look great. Just so everyone knows, James White is not injured. His wife was giving birth. That's why he did not receive any work or was even active. Do you know what was going on with Sonny Michel? Because he did not look good, and he was not involved as much as you would like.
No, I didn't read anything. I was trying to find some info on that. Not sure. I think it was just the Brady show, like it always is.
Yeah, I mean, Rex Burkhead got 11 carries. Literally looked 4 times better than Sonny Michel. It's going to be interesting to see how this develops. But the biggest thing we should talk about is Julian Edelman went down with a chest injury and did not return. Josh Gordon left for a little bit and came back. Are we worried about Julian Edelman? I think we are.
Yes, I think we are. And I think I picked up Dorsett in a bunch of leagues this past week. And because I was looking at it outside of before A. Brown came into the picture, Dorsett was relied on. I think Brady trusts him. And he's a very consistent receiver on this offense. He's averaging over 5 receptions a game and like over 60 yards a game, I think, on average right now.
Yeah. No, he looks good. And I think he's going to get the biggest bump if Edelman misses any time. We'll see as the week progresses what's going on with that injury. But if he's missing time, I think Dorsett catapults into maybe a wide receiver 2-3 territory going forward. They're down Antonio Brown now, so someone needs to pick it up in the passing game.
Yeah, and just watch out. And let's just see if Jacoby Myers preseason can carry through to the regular season.
Yeah. All right. I guess we'll talk about a Thursday game because I think that's all of our games thus far.
Yep, that is true. No, did we talk about? Oh no, we did talk about. Yeah, okay. Let's talk about Minshew Mania.
Okay. All right. I'm in a pickle, so we don't even really talk about this too much. Minshew looked great. Fournette looked terrible. What are we doing with Chark? Is he a must start going forward? Right?
Has to be with Minshew.
Right?
Yeah, this guy. He showed it every week that Minshew's been behind center. Right? He's been productive, and you could tell Minshew's really eyeing him, and just slinging the ball up for him and letting him go get it.
So before I move on to the Titans, who look terrible, I want to tell you guys some interesting facts about Minshew that I found out. His grandfather wanted to name him Beowulf, which I think is a pretty awesome name. Second fact, he was offered $1 million to exercise in a jockstrap for a porn manufacturer. Like they make jock straps for men of some sort, and he was offered $1 million to do that. I think that's all very interesting.
Well, did you read the other? Yeah, I like how his pregame, he throws aviators on, jockstrap, and just stretches in the locker room. No matter media in there and everybody in there, he's just stretching out in his jockstrap and aviators.
This guy's a legend, man.
And then I read this thing that he what was it?
The smashing hand thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you?
He tried to break his own hand because he was a red shirt freshman and knew that if he went out, he would lose his red shirt. So he hit his hand with a hammer 6 times trying to break it, and he couldn't. So he just lied to his coach and told me he slammed it against the car door on accident. But this guy is awesome, man.
Yeah, it's going to be curious to see what happens. I'm kind of rooting for Jacksonville now, even though they're in the Texans division. But I just want to see how far this guy could go.
For real, man. He's a 6th-round draft pick for them. So whatever. They got nothing to lose. He has nothing to lose at this point. So play it out, man.
Yeah, just go out there, ball out, man. You're going to get paid one way or another.
Exactly. So on the Titans side, Mariota looked atrocious. His numbers don't really show it, but he looked really fucking bad.
You see a Tannehill sighting at some point?
Yeah, I mean they had to reinforce that they were gonna not turn to Tannehill yet. They had one more week to go, so I think we're probably 2 or 3 weeks of this before we see Tannehill. Like Mariota is not a good starting quarterback in the NFL whatsoever.
No, the only thing that saved even in the running game was Derrick Henry's had that one touchdown. That's the only thing that saved this offense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Everybody else, Adam Humphrey showed up a little bit. Was targeted 9 times, 6 catches for 93 yards. I'm not buying that. And Delaney Walker was Delaney Walker, 7 receptions for 64. So,
yeah, I guess the biggest thing we could talk about before we talk about Minshew again is what are you doing with Fournette? He was drafted was a high-end RB2. He's not even that at this point. He was saved by that 69-yard run, but that's it.
Was he not? From what I read or what I understood, he was in negative yardage?
Up until that carry. Look, he has 66 yards with 15 carries, along 69. So, he was negative 4.
That's not good. I'd be concerned with that, And it's too bad. I thought for sure. I'm curious to see when they did take the lead in this game. I was kind of hoping that they would throw Armstead out there a little bit just because of the way that Fournette was struggling a little bit. Just kind of see what that kid's got.
I mean, they have to start seeing something because I don't know. They won their first game. I don't know if they should change much right now. Yeah. Just continue doing what you're doing. But I think if they lose a couple more games, I think it's time that they, move on from Fournette because this is not a good start.
No.
So back to Minshew. So in a dynasty league, I own Minshew, Mason Rudolph, and Jimmy Garoppolo, and I kind of want to trade one. Who should I trade from those three?
And it's a dynasty, is that what you said?
Yeah.
I would have to say the thing is you know that Minshew's not going to have this job once Foles.
If they're in the playoff hunt, why would they? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is like, if they're in the playoff hunt, would they really switch quarterbacks midway through?
Who knows? You don't understand. You don't know what these organizations are like. They've paid Foles a shit ton of money, right? So maybe a normal GM or a normal organization. No, you roll with what's happening, right? That's a tough one, to be honest with you. I think if anything, maybe Rudolph.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I think we need to get a good game out of him before I trade him away. But I think he is. I mean, I know Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the quarterback over there, and that's why I can't trade him.
Yeah.
But Minshew, I think, is out of the three right now is the best quarterback, which is kind of crazy. Like,
yeah.
He's gonna win me the most games. Garoppolo did not look good. Mason Rudolph did not look good. So I just think that's where Minshew is right now. He is like a top 16 quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, oh yeah. I like watching the kid.
Yeah, he's awesome. All right, I think that's going to cover our recap for the week. Anything else, Clayton?
No, I think that's everything, man.
Where can we find you, and where can we find your podcast?
I do have a podcast. It's called Fantasy Football from Up North. That's on Twitter. It is at FF from Up North, and my Twitter account is at Cadu Clayton. That's at CADIEUX Clayton, which I'm waiting to change the name. Just got to figure out to what.
It's a good idea. No, don't change your name, Clayton. But
no, Dale likes. We were talking about that in the pod. Dale likes Canadian Clayton.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's fine. And you can find us at Eat Sleep FF. I'm Armando Crespo. You guys have a great night.
Yeah, Eat Sleep Fantasy. You rocking with the best. NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. We talking mock drafts, running backs. Better follow the conversation with John, Dale, Christian, and Armando. Screaming Eat Nation. We doing what we like. Tune in every week. Guarantee we get it hype. Fantasy football enthusiasts. I know you plan to be joining us on Eat Sleep Fantasy. Yeah, Eat Sleep Fantasy. Eat Sleep Fantasy.